Hey ladies, welcome back to our girl talk. I think it's been about 2 weeks since I last posted, but I know that last week social media was just really lit up with the Black Lives Matter movement, and I thought that was really important that social media needed to be working towards the same movement at that time, so I didn't post out of respect. But I've had such incredible feedback from that last video where so many women have said, me too, I'm the same, I've also struggled with this. And it's just incredible to see how when we're vulnerable, when we're open, when we call something out, all of us can be like, whoa, I resonate with that, I also feel that. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about the power of vulnerability, and I thought I should share a little story first because it kind of leads me into everything else that I want to say. So, being Portuguese, context, growing up we were either making food, we were eating food, or we were thinking about food. It's just how it is in the Portuguese culture. Those of you who are Portuguese, you'll understand. And that was kind of how I grew up. So food has always been a bit of a thing in my life and something that I've kind of had to work through over the years. Anyways, the start of this year, my sister said to me, and I have full permission from her to talk about this, that she just feels she needs someone to be accountable with in terms of this eating, exercise, all of that. So we decided that once a day we'll check in with each other, say what we've had that day, like in terms of food, what exercise we've done. And I know some of you are probably like, that's psycho. It works for us, and it's not the main topic of this video, it's just leading into the vulnerability thing. Doing that with her, we had to become very vulnerable with each other of like, Tanya, I just ate a whole Malva pudding. I kid you not, the whole thing. Being that open was a challenge for me. Just some of the little like nuggets of truth that I've learned from this time I wanted to share on this platform. I think the first thing that I want to start off with why vulnerability is so important, and I was on a run the other day asking God, why do you think vulnerability is so important? And what he said to me is, you are more vulnerable in isolation than you are in vulnerability. I'm going to read that again. You are more vulnerable in isolation than you are in vulnerability. You see, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He doesn't want you to thrive. He doesn't want you to be open. He doesn't want you to live in community where you're sharing where you're at and how you're feeling about things. So when things are hidden, when we're going through something and we hide it, immediately that voice of the accuser that I spoke about in last week's video starts. You're the only one who does this. You should be ashamed of that. You should feel embarrassed by that thought, listening to this accuser and what he's telling us. And we don't want to be vulnerable in that space. Our first reaction is this guilt. It's this like shame. I'm unworthy. I'm a failure. I don't want to share. And that's exactly why what Tanya and I have had has been really special, because I will eat a whole Malva pudding and be like, Tanya, ah. My first reaction is, don't tell her that. And that's where the enemy wants to keep me, in that space. But the minute I share something and it's in the light, once something is in the light, darkness cannot exist there. You see, so the enemy knows if we bring stuff into the light, the power that that thing has over us is gone. It's completely counterculture for us to be open and vulnerable. Culture tells us to avoid attack, keep yourself guarded. God tells us to avoid attack, open yourself up. And it's this crazy idea that we would be open to be safe, as opposed to protecting ourselves to be safe. So apart from that protection, it offers us this incredible space of grace where we are honest with each other. And I'm sure you've all experienced this when you tell someone something and they're accepting of that. It's like this freedom that you feel. It's opening up and being like, this is where I'm weak. This is where I need help. it also gives us incredible courage for us to be ourselves, right? As women, we feel like no one should know that I'm going through this. No one should see that side of me. We try and justify our weaknesses. We try and hide our mistakes or our temptations. But when we're open and someone knows everything about you, you have courage to be yourself. It's like, okay, well, they already know and they love me anyway. God already knows you. He loves you anyway. I spoke about that last week. In saying that, I think we do have to address the caution of who to be vulnerable with and what to be vulnerable about. In Proverbs 4 verse 23, it says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. What's scary about vulnerability, and I think we can all identify with this, I hope you can identify with this is how I feel. When I'm vulnerable, I run the risk of being sabotaged or being rejected. Sabotage means if someone knows something about you, they can use that thing against you. We can easily sabotage each other, and I think women have to be aware of that. You've got to know the women around you, you've got to know the people around you, and know that they will encourage you in your vulnerability and not sabotage you for it. The other thing is that we fear being rejected. If I tell this person this, will they still see me the same way? And that is a very real fear. And I think for me, it's been a journey of understanding, if I truly understand how God sees me, it doesn't really matter if man rejects me. It doesn't really matter if a person says I'm not good enough, because inside I know that he says I am good enough. I wasn't going to go here, but I'm going to go here. Ladies, your heart is a deep ocean of feelings, of hopes, dreams, fears, emotion. Unless a man is willing to tread those waters, he should not come into your heart. I've been burned by this many a time, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. We have to be careful to guard our heart. Yes, you can be open, you can be friendly, and you can be vulnerable, but the deep ocean of your heart, that is saved for God and a man who's willing to tread those waters. So I hope this encourages you. I hope that you feel like there's been some nuggets of truth here that you can maybe take forward with you. I know it's not easy to be vulnerable. It's very scary and it's very unnatural. It feels like this weird juxtaposition of, we know as women how good it feels to be vulnerable and open, but we also know the fear that comes with that. And so we avoid being vulnerable out of fear of the rejection or the sabotage, instead of being vulnerable, being open, and allowing that absolute grace space, that courage for us to be ourselves and for us to live out our identities in Christ and who He's called us to be. Have an awesome week, and I'll see you soon.